John Lithgow was right. Who knew? Hello and welcome to RotD Review of the Day, and today I'm taking a look at the 2006 movie The Gravedancers. Now, this is a movie that it happened across it. It was a random selection by me because I have a large queue and I was scrolling through it and I stopped on this one and thought, hey, why not? The general notion of this movie is you have a group of three friends that are starting the movie by going to the funeral of their fourth friend, who you get the idea they've known for quite a while. And in their mourning, in their celebration of life, they revisit the cemetery, after the reception and, get drunk and, talk about the friend and catch up on times. And they find a small card that was put on the grave, and on the card is an incantation. So, of course, they read the incantation while they dance on graves that are around the area. And they wind up getting haunted by the spirits of the graves that they danced upon, each of them with their own unique haunting entity. And then they, how to break the curse, how to stop the haunting. They enlist, professionals, professors at a nearby university, things like that. It just kind of goes off from there. Let's run this through the categories. Let's just find out what we think of it through the categories. So here, so 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And the first one is plot. Now, the plot is the best thing about this because it actually, as far as just what is on the written page, the characters and their motivations and the excluding the dialogue, let's just say plot points, I thought this movie was actually fairly decent. It struggled a bit with its own reasoning and its own rules, and I'm definitely going to be getting into that, but the overarching elements of the plot points and the idea I thought actually kind of worked, and I gave it 18 out of 25 points. It was respectable. Now, everything after the written page, as far as what was put in front of the camera, was terrible. And that's where we get into the intent category. This was intending to be a character-driven, scary movie. And it failed on every single count I can possibly think of. It wasn't scary, period. It just wasn't. All of the jump scares that it tried for totally landed flat, totally failed miserably. The dialogue between the characters was so ham-fisted and so oddly disjointed. You got the sense that one of the friends was on page 25 while the other two were on page 22, and they just read the lines and who cares who bounced off of what. It was weird. And it didn't make sense, and it was just, somebody should have stopped this, and somebody should have fixed this. And the acting as well, but we'll get into the acting in a little bit. But for the most part, as far as a character-driven story, you had characters that you didn't care about, and that's a pretty critical element in a character-driven story, to have characters you care about. And this one, you just didn't. There was nothing that formed any third dimension for them. There was nothing that made any of them stand out. The chemistry between all of them, for being lifelong friends, there just wasn't any. You got the sense that this was pretty much the group, the misfit table at a wedding where they put the single people that kind of haphazardly know the cousin of the bride, and it's okay, you go over here, and now they're all at table 17 trying to have awkward conversation. That's what these characters were like. That was their level of interaction with one another, and it was painful to watch. The effects were just miserable. Everything about what this movie intended to be failed, and what makes it even worse is the fact that I did give the plot 18 out of 25 points. it should have been so much better. It had the skeletal structure to be somewhat decent and to actually pull this off, and it didn't just fall over its own feet. It fell over its own feet and continued rolling down the canyon wall. The Intent, I gave a 2 out of 25 points, and the only reason it got a 2 was because there was one singular jump scare, one, that gave me a mild start. That's about it. And honestly, I'm being a little bit generous on that one. The acting, as you can garner from how I've described this so far, I gave a 3 out of 25. It was just miserable, terrible. Everything about it didn't work. This had Dominic Purcell in it, or Purcell? This had Dominic Purcell in it, who you might remember from Prison Break. I don't know what in the world happened. Just the only thing that I thought was actually kind of decent about the acting was the professor character who they called upon for help, play the character of Vincent. He did an okay job. He was probably the most enjoyable part of a totally unenjoyable movie experience for me. The technical, again, I mean, what can I say about this? I gave the technical 5 out of 25 points. They technically did have special effects. They were a bit laughable, but at the same time, they also pulled them off. I didn't see any, strings holding anybody up. I didn't see, makeup falling off of an actor with the spirit gum, not working or something like that. So, okay, that word, technically they did actually manage to put a movie on celluloid and edit it and put it out there. So they participation ribbon, cool. There were a lot of elements of this that I thought really, obviously could have been improved, but specific things that I think that they really should have done that just didn't make a whole lot of sense in the context of the movie. And I think one of the worst things that it did was break its own rules. And I hate that when a horror movie does that. And I'm going to discuss that more in the deep dive spoiler-filled discussion. As it stands in a spoiler-free review, I think I've said about all I really cared to about this one. Would I recommend it? Absolutely not. I absolutely would not. Actively, I would recommend against it. If you see it in your queue, run the other way. Like, lock your door, start your car, drive to the next county, get away from this movie. It is not worth it at all. So that's pretty much how I feel about the Gravedancers. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, I welcome you to watch the deep dive discussion because I'm going to be making my points a little bit clearer and getting into the details of why I feel the way I do. Otherwise, please leave comments. I would love to hear from you whether or not you agree with me. And next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.